So Monsters Inc. for a while was my favorite movie in the Pixar series, and I always thought a sequel could have actually been very interesting, like a grown up Boo and stuff like that. But instead, we went with a prequel of how Mike and Sully met. Well, let's see how this goes. So we're looking at Monsters University, Pixar's first ever prequel. I'm gonna start off by saying I don't hate this movie. I know I've teased it in the previous reviews that Monsters University isn't that great, but it's fine. That's all it is. And this basically was every trope you would have expected from a college movie, which is not a bad thing. It was actually kind of fun to see all these different type of monsters in this world. And it was fine for that aspect of it. It was actually kind of cool to see Mike Wazowski really get into trying to be a scary monster, um, and wanting to do more than that. And then he goes to college, Monsters University, where he has dreamt of going, and he finally does it. And we even get to see Sullivan being this bad boy. He was already royalty because his dad was already famous. So it was very obvious where this movie was going. They were not gonna click, but because we already know what happens in the Monsters Inc. franchise, we already know that they're gonna be friends later on, and yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's how did we get from point A to point B, and how it connects to Monsters Inc. That's really all this movie is. The good thing about this movie is that John Goodman and Billy Crystal are back as respectively James Sullivan and Mike Wazowski. That was really good, and I really did enjoy like the side characters that were with Mike and Sully. That was good. Like those characters were fine. They were like not horrible. I didn't fully hate them. Basically, the concept of this movie is that they're at this very advanced classroom where it's about scaring people, and then one fight leads into the dean basically kicking both of them out of the classroom, and then they basically have to start from scratch. Then they enter this competition where it's a scare off, and it's like all these contests that Mike and Sully have to work together in order to win and get back into those classes. And in the process, you learn that Mike Wazowski isn't really scary. You know, he is really good at memorizing and getting his notes done, but he's not a scary monster. And I like that's probably the best part of this movie is the lesson that Mike is learning that he's not scary, but he is really good at helping people be scary, and he helps Sully, and it actually leads to how they ended up back because there's a part where Mike doubts himself after Sully cheats in the final competition. Um, they go into Earth where there's like a camping trip or something. Mike isn't scary enough, and then they have to do like a huge scare off in order to get back home, which is awesome. But basically, it just shows the dynamic that Sully and Mike need each other more than ever in order to be the best. And eventually, this all ties in, and then they end up working at Monsters Incorporated by the end of this. That's really the good part of this. I wasn't too high on the jocks. They were just stereotypical college jocks. One thing that definitely bothered me was Randall included in this movie. It felt very forced. I like Steve Buscemi. It was nice that they got him back, but he was really unnecessary. Like I could have gone without him being in this movie, and they don't really necessarily explain why he becomes bad. He's just like a dork, and then him and Mike are friends at first. They're in the same dorm, and then Randall turns evil because the jocks picked him because he's popular now, and then There's this part where like I'll get you back, Sully, and it just didn't work. I wasn't high on Randall being here, even though he was one of my favorite characters and villains in Pixar. But I didn't like his inclusion here. He really was unnecessary. They should have just made Johnny the main bad guy just from the start and go from there. There is other cameos that happen, such as Ross comes out, but she's masked, so we don't even know her face yet. Even though everybody knows the abominable snowman makes an appearance here in this movie, it it still was fine, but it still wasn't that Pixar magic that we know and love today. It's it was just a generic prequel that I wasn't too fond of. Like I said, the chemistry between Mike and Sully is still there thanks to John Goodman and Billy Crystal. And it's an alright movie, but it wasn't the standards that the previous movies have done. So I'll give it a C, but I don't hate it. Am I making sense? It was a fine movie. It was good to see these characters again, but this is a very skippable movie, if you ask me. It had some cool tropes, some funny gags, but overall, not really. It didn't really do much for me. But the movie that did do it for me is the next Pixar project, Inside Out. I cannot wait to talk about that movie. Anyways, take care, everybody.